Well, hello class. For this week in Module 4, we are going to be talking about emotions and moods. We just came off talking about perceptions, and it's interesting of how we get perceptions and attitudes and then segue into emotions and moods. And this really has a lot to do with organizational culture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the overview of the chapter, and then what I am going to do after I do the overview is kind of put up some YouTube videos on the important points. I'm not going to overwhelm you with a lot of notes and things like that. And then in class we'll cover the material, and then I'll give you the assignments. Okay? And maybe think about some group activity this week. It's going to be interesting, especially into emotions and moods. It makes for a really interesting class. So let's talk about the overview of the chapter. What are the learning objectives and the learning outcomes, and what are we trying to accomplish? Well, the overview is of the chapter is that this chapter is going to examine the effects of moods and emotions on the workplace. Humans are what we refer to as emotional creatures, and to ignore this fact during working hours is really not appropriate in the study of organizational behavior. We're human, face it. This chapter examines the causes of and influences on emotion. We're going to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence too. We're going to look at that and the various ways emotions play out in the work environment. So look at your PowerPoint 4.3 and look at the learning outcomes and of this particular chapter. We want to be able to differentiate between emotions and moods. We want to be able to discuss whether emotions are rational and what functions they actually serve. We want to be able to describe the validity of potential sources of emotions. Where do they come from? And moods. We want to be able to show the impact emotional labor has on employees. We want to describe affective, that's with an A, events theory and its applications. It would be great if we could contrast the evidence for and against the existence of emotional intelligence. There are a lot out there that still don't believe it exists. And then identify strategies for emotional regulations and their likely effects. We want to finally be able to apply concepts about emotions and moods to specific organizational behavior issues. So the first thing I'm going to touch on, you look at your PowerPoint 4.4, and it's really introducing emotions and how they have an effect on behavior. Until recent times, OB has not been given much research, attention anyway. There was a long-standing belief that emotions of any kind were thought to be disruptive in the work environment, but they really can be very positive. So let's look at emotions and moods and what we refer to as emotional terminology. If you look at Exhibit 4-1 in your book and PowerPoint 4.5, there are three closely related terms that must be defined when we explore the subject of emotions and moods. The first one is affect, that's with an A. It's the generic term that covers a broad range of feelings that people experience. It's an umbrella concept that encompasses emotions and moods. Then there's emotion itself, the intense feelings that are directed at someone or something. Emotions are more fleeting than moods. They tend to be clearly revealed through body language, like facial expressions, and are often action-oriented. Emotions are reactions to a person or an event. You should show your emotion when you're happy about something, angry at someone, afraid of something. Then there's moods. Okay, what about moods? You're in a mood, people say. It's the feelings that tend to be less intensive than emotions and often lack a contextual stimulus. Moods are much more longer lasting than emotions, and they're usually not directed sometimes at any particular person, although they could be. Emotions can turn into moods when you lose focus on the event or object that started the feeling. Like sometimes you might say to someone, when you seem to be in a mood, they turn around and say to you, I don't know what you're talking about. Sometimes they don't even know they're in a mood, but they are, because they're feeling an emotion, but not just for the time. It might have been spontaneous, but then it kind of lasted longer. When a colleague criticizes how you spoke to a client, you might show emotion, anger, toward a specific object, your colleague. You could attribute the feeling to a single event, and they could say, well, you're just not your normal self. So the affect state usually describes a mood. If you look at Exhibit 4-1, what that essentially does is 4-1 shows the relationship among affect, emotions, and moods. It shows affect, that's the broader term, that's first. Then it shows differences between emotions and moods, second. And the third is it shows emotions and moods as being closely connected, and they really can play off or influence each other. If you go to PowerPoint 4.6, it shows the base emotions. There are dozens of them, and you can read through all of them, like anger, contempt, enthusiasm, fear, frustration, all of that. Then there's the basic positive and negative affect. PowerPoint 4-7. One way to classify emotions is whether they are positive or negative. Positive emotions express a favorable evaluation of feeling, like joy or gratitude. Negative emotions express the opposite, anger or guilt. Then we have negative affect, and that is the mood dimension consisting of like nervousness or stress or anxiety. And that's on the low end, and on the high end, relaxation, tranquility, and poise at the low end. If you look at PowerPoint 4.8, there's something called positivity offset. At zero input, when no stimulus is provided, most people experience a mildly positive mood. In fact, positive moods tend to be more common than negative ones. So the degree to which people experience positive and negative emotions can vary across cultures. If you look at PowerPoint 4.9, it shows the function of emotions and moods. And ask the question, do emotions really make us irrational? You can read through that, whether emotions are rational or not. Look at PowerPoint 4.10. Sources of emotions and moods. One could be personality. Also, people differ in affect intensity. We'll talk about this in class. Look at Exhibit 4.2 in PowerPoint 4.11. Mood and emotion can be affected by the timing of the stimulus. So we can look at Exhibit 4.2. Time, like morning, evening, day, What's the highest and lowest points of your day? Look at Exhibit 4.3. Good stuff in there. What about weather? Weather affects people. Look at PowerPoint 4.13. And then illusory correlation. And that explains why people tend to think nice weather improves their mood. Stress. As you might imagine, stressful daily events at work, a reprimand, a negative email, something goes on with a coworker, but the effects of stress build over time and actually could be harmful to the body. Then there's social activities, sleep, exercise, age, sex, all of these things. PowerPoint 4.14 has a lot to do with all of these things I just mentioned. Look at PowerPoint 4.15. It talks about emotional labor. Emotional labor is that certain jobs require emotional labor. That's an employee's expression of organizationally desired emotions during interpersonal transitions at work. Disparity is emotional dissonance, and that can take a heavy toll on you. The distance between where you are and where you want to be. That could be a problem. There's felt emotions and displayed emotions. There's something called surface acting, hiding inner feelings and foregoing emotional expression in response to display rules. And then there is what they call deep acting. Go to PowerPoint 4.17. It talks about effective events theory. We've seen that emotions and moods are important parts of our personal lives and our work lives, but how do they influence our job performance and satisfaction? So there's a model called AET. That's effective events theory. And this demonstrates that employees react emotionally to things that happen to them at work. Look at Exhibit 4.4, PowerPoint 4.18. Then finally we got emotional intelligence. What is that? PowerPoint 4.19, 4.20, and 4.21. Exhibit 4-5 are the points of service here. Emotional intelligence is a person's ability to perceive emotions in oneself and others and kind of put them together. And emotional intelligence helps us to regulate our emotions according to what they call a cascading model. Look at Exhibit 4-5. That means that self-aware people tend to be good at reading emotional cues. They know something needs to be done. They know something's going on. If you have high EI, high emotional intelligence, it's moderated usually with or correlated to job high performance. So there are supporters making a case for emotional intelligence, and that's called intuitive appeal, and you can read all about that. Then there's a case against EL, and you can read all about that too. Then there's emotional regulations. Look for all of that in PowerPoints 4.21 and 4.22. Now, if you look at PowerPoint 4.23, it goes into applications of emotions and moods. So we have introduction, selection, decision making, creativity, and motivation. PowerPoint 4.24, which comes under leadership, negotiation skills, customer service. If you go to PowerPoint 4.25, they talk about job attitudes. So you want to read through all of that. 4.26 goes into safety and injury at work and what are some of the implications for managers. And PowerPoint 4.27 gives you a summary. So I'm going to go over a lot of this in class. I just wanted to give you the overview, and if you have a chance between now and Thursday to go over this stuff, please do that. We'll be better prepared for class. I'm looking at maybe doing some role play, and there will be want to say here. Okay, yeah, and I believe for this week there's either a hypothetical or a PowerPoint discussion, but you'll probably see it somewhere before the weekend. I would say after Thursday's class or on Friday or Saturday. Okay, have a wonderful day. It's Tuesday right now. Gives you some time to read up on this stuff, and I'll see you Thursday morning at 9 sharp. Take care.